There is a mountain that no wind reaches. There is a flame that burns without smoke. There is a being behind your eyes who watches and never blinks. Take a moment, feel how time leans in on you not as a burden, but as a silent witness. Every breath you take is measured, not by clocks or calendars, but by how much of you is present and how much has been lost to the noise. We wake up in a world already set in motion. News floods our ears, faces scowl or smile, people praise or reject, and like leaves in the river, we drift reacting, flinching, chasing. But ask yourself now, who are you when nothing moves you? When no praise lifts you, no insult bends you, no fear rushes your pulse, no desire clouds your clarity. To act as if nothing affects you is not to harden, not to shut down, not to play pretend. It is to return. To return to the place before name, before expectation, before the need to be seen. There is power in the one who feels but does not flinch, who bleeds but does not shout, who stands in fire and sees only light. Because that one has ceased being a puppet of emotion, a slave to circumstances, you must understand it is not indifference, but sovereignty, not numbness, but stillness, not arrogance, but intimacy with the eternal. Can you walk through insult as if it were wind? Can you sit with loss as if it were fog passing over a lake? Can you listen to the world's screaming demands and respond with a silence so deep it startles? Act as if nothing affects you, because deep within nothing truly does. The surface trembles, yes, but the ocean floor is unmoved. To live this way is to become a mirror that reflects but never holds, a flame that warms but does not consume, a mountain that watches the seasons rage and fade with quiet majesty. And when others see you, they may say, "You are unbothered." But what they mean is, you have remembered who you are. There is a common misconception in the modern world, one that confuses stillness with emptiness, silence with absence, calm with detachment. This misunderstanding leads many to fear stillness, to avoid silence, to constantly fill the space with noise, movement, and stimulation. We have learned to equate value with activity and meaning with motion, but this is a mistake that costs us the very depth of our being. Stillness is not the absence of something, it is the presence of everything, gathered, quiet, focused. It is not a void to be filled, but a fullness too vast to be expressed in noise. It is not the space where nothing happens, but the field where the essential things happen, where the unnoticed truths unfold. Stillness is the listening behind the words, the awareness behind the thought, the alertness in the body when it ceases to fidget. When you are still, the mind may rebel. It will throw up distractions, sensations, emotions, thoughts, anything to keep movement going. Not because movement is bad, but because the mind fears what is behind the movement. It fears the silence because silence reveals what it has hidden. But you must understand, what the mind hides is not a darkness, but a clarity so luminous that the busy mind cannot grasp it. Stillness is presence, pure, undivided presence. It is not just the act of sitting quietly or speaking less. It is the state of being deeply rooted in the moment, unaffected by the pull of past or future. It is the willingness to let go of the story, to stop narrating and simply be, and in that being, there is immense intelligence. There is a quality of perception that does not filter through judgment or identity. You begin to see life not through the lens of your name, your role, or your preferences, but through something much deeper, through consciousness itself. Most people are not aware of how much they are not present. They believe they are awake, alert, functional, but if you watch closely, you will see how rarely people are actually here. They are consumed by memories, distracted by desires, reacting to thoughts like puppets on invisible strings. Their bodies are in the room, but their awareness is elsewhere. Even in conversation, they are planning responses, defending ego, or seeking approval. What we call being social is often just an exchange of conditioned responses, not real presence. Stillness disrupts this pattern. It is a rebellion against mindless reaction, a refusal to be pulled in every direction by whatever arises. When you are still, you do not chase thoughts, you watch them come and go. You do not grab emotions, you let them rise and fall. You stop trying to manage everything outside and instead become attentive to what is inside. And what you find inside is not chaos as many fear, but space, vast space. It is this spaciousness that allows insight to bloom. In stillness, the senses sharpen. You begin to hear the subtleties, the way a bird call echoes through the air, the weight of your breath entering and leaving your lungs, the way your heartbeat syncs with silence. Time stretches and becomes soft. There is no hurry, no grasping. Every moment is enough, and this is not laziness, nor is it stagnation. It is the opposite. It is receptivity. It is openness. It is the condition in which the deepest movements of life can be felt and understood. To act as if nothing affects you does not mean to shut yourself off from experience. It means to return to this place of still presence where experience flows through without sticking. It means to observe without becoming entangled, to care without clutching, to respond without reacting. Stillness makes this possible, because only when you are still can you choose your response rather than be swept away by impulse. Only in stillness can you distinguish between what arises from wisdom and what arises from fear. People fear stillness because it demands honesty. In movement, you can hide, you can pretend, but in stillness, you are laid bare. The roles you play, the masks you wear, the beliefs you protect, all become visible. There is no noise to drown out your inner contradictions, and yet, this confrontation is not something to avoid. It is the doorway to freedom, for once you see clearly, you can let go. You can stop defending illusions and start living from what is real. Stillness does not require isolation or retreat to a mountain cave. It can happen in the heart of a city, in the middle of a conversation, in the act of walking, eating, even working. It is not about external silence, but internal alignment. It is about being fully with what is, without wanting to be elsewhere. When you are in this state, your actions become cleaner. You no longer act from compulsion but from clarity. You do not rush to fill silence with words, nor do you react out of habit. Your responses arise from depth, not reflex. Presence is the essence of all spiritual practice. No matter the path, the tradition, the philosophy, all point back to this: be here, be now, be awake. And yet, this simple instruction is the hardest to follow. The mind resists. The ego protests. Because to be fully present, you must relinquish the stories that give you comfort. You must release the fantasy of control. You must surrender the identity you have carefully constructed. And yet, in doing so, you find something infinitely more stable and real. In stillness, you begin to see that the events of life are not happening to you. They are simply happening. The mind interprets them as personal, as meaningful or threatening. But presence removes the filter. It allows you to experience life as it is, without narrative. This is not nihilism. It is liberation. Because once you stop being dragged by every wave, you can see the ocean. You can trust the flow. You realize that you are not the content of your thoughts, but the awareness in which those thoughts appear and dissolve. This recognition does not come through effort. It comes through allowing. Stillness is not something you can force. You cannot achieve it through aggression or willpower. It is not another task on a to-do list. It comes when you stop trying to reach it, when you become tired of chasing, when you become quiet enough to hear the whisper beneath the noise. It emerges. And when it does, it feels like home. It is familiar because it has always been there underneath the striving, the stress, the search. Children know stillness. Animals know it. The natural world lives in it. Watch a cat lying in the sun, or a tree swaying in the wind, or a child absorbed in play. There is no rush, there is no agenda, there is just being. This is not ignorance, it is wisdom unclouded by overthinking. The human mind has developed the power of thought, but in doing so, has forgotten how to rest in being. Stillness is the remembering, it is the return. When you live from this state of presence, something interesting happens. The world responds differently. Because you are not projecting agitation, you stop attracting it. Because you are not caught in drama, you no longer perpetuate it. Your interactions become simpler. Your relationships deepen. People feel your presence and are calmed by it. You no longer feed the collective anxiety. Instead, you offer a space where others can also find themselves. To act as if nothing affects you is not to deny that things happen. It is to recognize that the deepest part of you, the part that watches, that witnesses, that remains, cannot be touched by circumstance. This is not philosophy. It is direct experience, available to anyone who is willing to be still. The surface of the lake ripples, but the depth remains unmoved. This depth is your true nature, and it is accessed not through escape, but through attention. Stillness is presence, and presence is power, not the loud, forceful power of domination, but the quiet, grounded power of clarity. When you are present, you are unshakable, not because you have built walls, but because you have removed the illusion that you are under threat. You see that thoughts come and go, emotions rise and fall, situations change, but you remain. The awareness that you are is untouched by any of it. This is the essence of spiritual maturity, to meet life fully without becoming overwhelmed, to feel deeply without drowning, to care passionately without grasping. And all of this is only possible from stillness, not a stillness that suppresses, but one that embraces, not a stillness that retreats, but one that radiates. This is the stillness that transforms not just your experience, but your very way of being in the world. In this stillness, presence becomes your natural state. You do not seek it, because you no longer leave it. You do not have to remind yourself to be mindful. It becomes who you are. You move slowly, speak less, listen more. You do not react, you respond, and your response carries weight, not because it is forceful, but because it comes from depth. It comes from a place within you that is aligned, centered, and whole. This is why stillness is not emptiness. It is not a lack. It is a richness too subtle for the restless mind to comprehend. It is the fullness of being undistracted, undivided, and unshaken. And in a world that constantly tries to pull you away from yourself, this stillness becomes not just a refuge, but a revolution. There is a quiet revolution that does not unfold in the streets or in the corridors of power, but in the hidden interior of the human heart. It is not dramatic, nor does it demand the attention of others. It occurs in moments when a person chooses, with great intention, not to be ruled by their emotional tides. This revolution is the path toward emotional sovereignty. It is the quiet power of one who is no longer swayed by every fleeting feeling, who does not crumble at judgment or inflate at praise, who does not seek to escape discomfort or chase after the illusion of constant happiness. To attain emotional sovereignty is to taste a kind of freedom that cannot be given or taken, only realized. Most people do not recognize how deeply their emotions govern them. They believe they are choosing their actions, when in fact they are reacting to inner storms, unexamined fears, old wounds, passing moods, or external triggers. When someone criticizes them, they defend. When someone praises them, they glow. When they are disappointed, they withdraw. When they are angry, they strike. This emotional puppet string dance is so common that we rarely question it. But when you begin to observe your life with clarity, you will see how little agency you possess when your emotions sit on the throne. Emotions, in themselves, are not the enemy. They are not to be suppressed, denied, or demonized. They are natural waves that pass through the human experience, expressions of your interaction with the world. But when those waves become whirlpools, when they grip you and define your sense of self, then suffering begins. The pain of being sad is not as deep as the pain of believing you are sadness. The sting of anger does not harm as much as the belief that anger justifies harmful action. The feeling of fear is temporary. It is identifying with fear that creates a cage. To be sovereign emotionally is not to cease feeling. It is to feel everything and still choose your response. It is the mastery of internal space. It is having emotions, but not being had by them. This is the delicate art of remaining soft yet unshaken, of letting every feeling pass through you like wind through an open window, while the structure of your being remains intact. This kind of freedom is not won overnight. It is cultivated in small, conscious acts of non-reaction. Observe yourself the next time something discomforting arises. Someone interrupts you. An expectation goes unmet. A fear surfaces. The body tightens. The mind races. The emotion flares. But pause, just for a breath. In that breath is your entry point to sovereignty. In that breath is the moment where reaction can be observed, where the unconscious can be illuminated, and where choice is born. This breath is the royal chamber in which your freedom resides. To claim sovereignty, you must step back from the story that your mind tells you about your emotions. Often, we believe that our feelings are entirely justified, that they must be obeyed because they are real. But just because something is real does not mean it is wise. The emotional reaction you have to an insult may be real, but is it beneficial to hold on to it? The jealousy you feel may be intense, but does it serve your growth? To question your emotions does not invalidate them. It liberates you from their tyranny. There is a difference between suppression and sovereignty. Suppression is resistance, a forced denial of what arises, often leading to a buildup of pressure that eventually explodes. Sovereignty, on the other hand, is spacious. It is like standing on the shore watching the waves crash. You are present, observant, but not swept away. You allow the feeling to arise, you breathe with it, and you let it move through. You do not identify with it, and you do not act from it. This spacious awareness creates a sanctuary within, where the emotional storms may rage, but your inner flame does not flicker. People often associate emotional sovereignty with coldness, as if the absence of outward reaction means a lack of empathy or depth. But this is a misunderstanding. The person who is emotionally sovereign feels deeply, often more deeply than others, because they are not distracted by the noise of reaction. They can hold space for the pain of others without collapsing. They can witness suffering without becoming entangled. Their presence is not diminished by strong emotion. It is illuminated by it, because they are not afraid of what arises. To be free in this way is to become inwardly ungovernable. It means your state of mind is no longer at the mercy of someone else's behavior. You no longer rely on others to validate your worth. You are not thrown off balance by someone else's instability. This does not mean you are indifferent or detached. It means you are grounded. You become like a tree whose roots go deep. The wind may shake your branches, but it cannot uproot you. This kind of emotional maturity is rare, not because it is inaccessible, but because few are willing to do the deep, quiet work it requires. Part of this work is learning to see emotions not as facts, but as signals. Anger may be signaling that a boundary has been crossed. Sadness may be asking you to release something. Fear may be pointing to an unhealed part of yourself. Instead of obeying the emotion, inquire into it. Ask, what are you trying to show me? What lies underneath you? What belief sustains you? Emotions are not random. They are mirrors reflecting the inner landscape of your beliefs, attachments, and wounds. Sovereignty involves using these reflections not as commands, but as teachers. This kind of inner work does not happen in moments of ease. It is refined in discomfort, in tension, in the ordinary frustrations of daily life. When someone cuts in front of you in traffic, when a loved one disappoints you, when plans fall apart, these are your practice grounds. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, you are reclaiming your throne. Every time you sit with discomfort instead of fleeing it, you are strengthening your foundation. Every time you speak with calm instead of spite, you are embodying your freedom. Emotional sovereignty also requires honesty. You must be willing to face your internal weather without denial. You must see where you are still controlled by approval, where you still need to be right, where you hide behind anger because vulnerability feels dangerous. It is uncomfortable to see these places within, but necessary. Sovereignty is not about perfection. It is about responsibility. It is the deep, unshakable commitment to take ownership of your inner state, no matter the outer circumstance. This ownership is not harsh or rigid. It is tender. It understands that you are human, that you will falter, that there will be days when emotions seem stronger than you. But even in those moments, the sovereign self does not abandon itself. It does not blame others or fall into victimhood. It pauses, it breathes, it begins again. This is the strength of one who knows that true power lies not in controlling others or manipulating circumstances, but in mastering the space within. When you are sovereign, relationships transform. You no longer enter them seeking completion. You do not ask others to carry your wounds, or fix your mood, or regulate your sense of self. You meet them as a whole being, not as a beggar asking for emotional scraps. And because of this, your love becomes purer. It is not entangled with need, not corrupted by fear. You can give freely, receive openly, and walk away if necessary without hatred or regret. This kind of freedom is not cold, it is sacred. Society does not teach emotional sovereignty. It teaches performance. From a young age, we are taught what to feel, when to express it, and how to behave according to social scripts. Anger must be suppressed, sadness must be hidden, joy must be moderated, vulnerability must be rare. In this way, we become disconnected from our own emotional truth. We become dependent on external cues to decide what is appropriate. Sovereignty begins the moment you stop seeking permission to feel and start cultivating the strength to hold whatever arises. This freedom does not make you untouchable. It makes you deeply alive. It means you can cry without shame, laugh without fear, and grieve without losing yourself. You are not afraid of emotion because you have met it, again and again, in the quiet of your own presence. You have sat with your rage until it softened into sadness. You have held your despair until it dissolved into clarity. You have witnessed your fear until it turned into courage. These alchemies are not taught, they are lived. They are the fruit of presence, patience, and unwavering self-awareness. To live emotionally sovereign is to reclaim the center of your being. It is to walk through life not armored, but open. It is to speak with kindness, not because you are afraid of conflict, but because you have nothing to prove. It is to listen deeply, not because you want to be liked, but because you are no longer distracted by your own inner noise. In every moment, you carry your calm like a lantern, lighting the path not only for yourself, but for those still lost in reactivity. And so, you become still without being silent, clear without being cold, strong without being hard. You radiate a presence that others may not be able to name, but they will feel it. They will feel your steadiness and wonder what sustains it. They will feel your peace and wonder where it comes from. And though they may not know the words, what they are sensing is your freedom. Not the freedom that depends on circumstance, but the freedom that arises when nothing within you needs to be conquered, because everything within you has already been seen. Most people move through life unconsciously absorbing everything that touches them. Words, moods, energies, opinions, fears. Like a sponge, they soak in the chaos around them until they are saturated with things that are not theirs. Their sense of self becomes distorted by the expectations of others, by the noise of culture, by the wounds of childhood, by the judgments of society. They carry burdens that were never theirs to begin with, and then wonder why they feel so heavy. But the self was never meant to be a sponge. The self, in its truest form, is a mirror, clear, still, and reflective. A sponge absorbs indiscriminately. It takes in whatever it contacts without discernment. In the same way, when we move through the world without self-awareness, we internalize the emotions and projections of others. Someone's anger becomes our guilt. Someone's insecurity becomes our doubt. Someone's urgency becomes our anxiety. And soon, we are full of fragments that do not belong to us. We feel overwhelmed, not because we are broken, but because we have mistaken absorption for empathy, reaction for responsibility, and conformity for connection. To live as a mirror is to live from clarity, not confusion. A mirror does not cling. It does not alter what it reflects. It does not become the image it holds. It simply witnesses. It sees things as they are, untouched and untainted. This is the natural state of the self before it is covered by conditioning. It is spacious, open, empty in the way that allows everything to pass through it without leaving residue. The mirror is not cold or passive. It is luminous in its stillness. It holds everything, but is possessed by nothing. To return to this mirrored self is not to become indifferent or detached. It is to reclaim the capacity to perceive without distortion, to feel without drowning, to relate without losing yourself. It is to remember that you do not have to internalize everything that is presented to you. Not every opinion is truth. Not every emotion is yours to carry. Not every conflict is yours to solve. You can witness without absorbing. You can care without collapsing. You can listen without inheriting the pain. Living as a mirror means cultivating inner stillness, for a mirror cannot reflect clearly if its surface is disturbed. When the mind is agitated, reactive, and filled with mental chatter, it cannot see the world as it is. It sees through the veil of its own turbulence, and so stillness becomes essential. It is the calm water that reflects the sky. Stillness allows perception to sharpen, and from that perception arises discernment, the ability to know what is yours and what is not. Many suffer not from their own wounds, but from inherited patterns. They absorb generational fears, cultural shame, societal pressure. They are told who they must be, what they must feel, what success looks like, what love should cost. They take it all in without question. But a mirror does not absorb identity, it reveals it. It does not dictate what should be, it shows what is. And in this reflection, there is no need for performance, no need for disguise. The mirror is not trying to impress. It is not striving to become. It simply allows, and in that allowing, it teaches a deeper truth. To be a mirror is not to become numb. In fact, it is to become more sensitive, but in a refined way. Not reactive sensitivity that is wounded by every word, but open sensitivity that feels fully and lets go instantly, like the wind that brushes the lake and then moves on. This kind of sensitivity does not take things personally. It sees anger in others and recognizes it as their pain, not your fault. It sees rejection and does not turn it into self-blame. It sees praise and does not turn it into pride. Everything is seen clearly, but nothing is clutched. To live like this requires self-remembrance. You must remember what you are beyond your roles and reactions. You must return, again and again, to that quiet center within you that is untouched by circumstance. That space where you can simply watch without judgment. This watching is not cold observation. It is the highest form of love, for in true seeing, there is no agenda. There is no need to fix, to change, to control. There is only presence, and presence, when it is unclouded, transforms everything it meets. The mirror, self, is not passive, it acts, but its actions arise from clarity, not compulsion. When someone insults you, the sponge absorbs the insult and begins to believe it. The mirror reflects it back, unmoved. The insult remains with the one who threw it. The mirror does not take offense because it does not take ownership. This is not weakness. It is strength beyond ego. It is the strength that comes from knowing who you are without needing to defend it. It is the power of not being pulled into battles that do not require your energy. This way of being does not isolate you from the world. On the contrary, it allows you to be fully in the world without being consumed by it. You can walk through chaos and remain centered. You can sit with someone in pain and not be destroyed by it. You can hear noise all around you and still carry silence within. This is the grace of the mirror. It reflects without losing itself. It holds without holding on. Children often leave this way before they are taught to internalize. A child can cry intensely and laugh a moment later. They do not hold on to the emotion. They experience it fully and then let it pass. They do not absorb others' opinions because they have not yet been taught to base their worth on external reflection. But slowly, we teach them to sponge. We teach them to take in shame, guilt, fear, and expectation. And so they forget the mirror, but the mirror remains. It is never destroyed. It is only covered, clouded by conditioning. The work is to clean the surface. To clean the mirror is not to perfect yourself. It is to remove what is not you. It is to peel away layers of identity that were never truly yours, stories, labels, roles. It is to unlearn the habit of internalizing everything. This is not a rejection of life. It is an honoring of your boundaries. It is the act of returning what is not yours, of saying, this pain belongs to you, not me. This fear, this shame, this rage, it is not mine to carry. I see it, I honor it, but I will not absorb it. There is great compassion in this stance, because when you no longer carry what is not yours, you can better serve those who are struggling. You are not weakened by their suffering. You do not try to rescue them out of your own discomfort. You can stand beside them, unwavering, offering a reflection of peace. And sometimes that reflection is what they need most, not advice, not solutions. Just a presence that is not trying to fix them, but simply sees them clearly and without judgment. When you live as a mirror, your clarity becomes a gift to others. It invites them to see themselves more honestly. It challenges their projections. It disrupts their patterns, not by force, but by truth. You become a kind of sacred disruption. By not reacting, you end the chain of unconscious repetition. You do not return hurt for hurt, fear for fear. You break the cycle by not participating in it, and in doing so, you create a space where healing can begin. This way of being is subtle. It is not dramatic or loud. It is quiet, steady, unassuming, but its power is immense. Because in a world full of people absorbing and projecting, reacting and blaming, a single person who reflects can shift the entire dynamic. Their presence becomes a reminder there is another way, a way that is neither defensive nor submissive, a way that is both strong and soft, a way that sees clearly and loves deeply. The mirror does not seek applause. It does not crave recognition. It simply does what it does, reflects, and in that reflection, truth is revealed. Truth not as dogma, but as direct experience. When you stop absorbing, you start seeing. When you stop identifying, you start understanding. And from understanding comes peace, not the peace of escape, but the peace of clarity. The peace of knowing what is yours and what is not. The peace of knowing that you do not need to be everything for everyone. You only need to be fully present, and in that presence, everything is enough. This is the invitation to stop being a sponge and become a mirror, to let go of the need to hold everything, to trust that clarity is more powerful than control, to remember that you are not defined by what touches you, but by how you see it. And in that seeing, in that silent reflection, the self remembers its true nature, not as a container for others' emotions, but as a clear and luminous field in which all things are seen, all things are honored, and nothing needs to be held. There is a moment, subtle and fleeting, that occurs before every reaction. A breath, a pause, a silence so small it often goes unnoticed. It is in this space that something vital waits to be discovered, a truth, ancient and untouched, that whispers of who you truly are. Not the voice that shouts in defense, not the glare that rises in anger, not the hands that tighten in fear. Those are shadows, echoes, habits. They are the body's reflexes, the mind's rehearsals, the ego's armor. But beneath all of them, quiet and unwavering, lies your true identity. Most people do not see this space. They live at the surface, in a constant state of reaction, pulled by praise, provoked by criticism, moved by fear, seduced by desire. They say, "I am angry, I am hurt, I am anxious," as if those passing experiences define them, as if they are no more than the sum of their emotional reflexes. But you are not your reaction. You are the awareness that notices the reaction. You are the stillness underneath the storm, and if you can find that place, even for a moment, you will touch something real, something that does not shake when the world does. Reaction is the outermost layer of the self, like ripples on the surface of a lake. It is where the ego lives, where identity is entangled with circumstance. When someone disrespects you, the reaction may be to lash out or shrink back. When plans go wrong, the reaction may be to blame or despair. These responses feel automatic, even justified, but they are not rooted in freedom. They are born of conditioning. They are echoes of past wounds, cultural training, inherited fear. They are not you. They are what you learned to be in order to protect what you thought was you. The true self does not need to defend. It does not tremble at insult or swell at approval. It remains, it witnesses, it feels, but is not possessed by feeling. To find this self, you must be willing to look beyond the noise, to let the reaction come and not cling to it, to observe the anger and not become it, to feel the fear and not obey it. This requires courage because the reaction gives a sense of certainty, a sense of self. When you are angry, you feel powerful. When you are afraid, you feel alert. When you are offended, you feel righteous. Letting go of reaction feels like stepping into emptiness, but it is in that emptiness that your true form begins to take shape. Most people confuse reaction with authenticity. They say, "This is just who I am." But no, that is who you became, shaped by circumstance and repetition. That is who you perform when you are not fully present. Authenticity is not reaction. It is response born from awareness. It is the choice that arises when you are no longer ruled by compulsion. It is not less passionate. It is more deliberate. It is not detached. It is deeply engaged, but not entangled. Your reactions are not your fault, but they are your responsibility. They are the traces of everything you've endured, everything you've believed, everything you've internalized. But you are not obligated to continue enacting them. You are not a machine repeating code. You are consciousness itself, capable of awareness, reflection, and transformation. Every moment you pause before a reaction, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you choose stillness over habit, you remember who you are beneath the noise. Imagine someone speaks to you with harshness. Instantly, the body tightens, the heart races, the mind fires with justifications and comebacks. This is the reaction. It's quick, primal, charged, but before you speak, you pause. You feel everything, but you don't move. In that pause, something deeper emerges. A part of you that is not wounded, not defensive, not afraid. That part sees clearly. This person's words are born from their pain, not your worth. That part chooses a different response, not silence to appease, not anger to dominate, but presence. This is not weakness. This is mastery. This is identity freed from reflex. To live from this place is to step out of the prison of reactivity. It is to stop letting every situation define you, every comment shape you, every outcome control you. It is to stop living as a mirror of the world and start living as a source. The world pushes and pulls, but you remain steady. Not because you are numb, but because you are rooted. Not because you don't care, but because you care from a deeper place. This is not suppression. It is revelation. It is not pretending to be calm. It is finding the calm that was always underneath. Some reactions are subtle: impatience, irritation, judgment. Others are more dramatic: rage, despair, euphoria. But in all of them, there is a chance to remember, not by resisting the feeling, but by turning inward and asking, who is the one noticing this? What remains when the wave passes? Over time, you begin to see that the true self is not in the wave, but in the ocean. It is not in the thunder, but in the silence that surrounds it. The self that reacts is a shadow. The self that observes is the light. This understanding changes how you relate to others. When someone reacts, you no longer take it personally. You see their pain, their confusion, their longing to be seen. And because you are not reacting, you become a space where they can drop their defenses. Your non-reaction becomes a mirror in which they can see themselves more clearly. This is not about being passive or tolerant of harm. It is about clarity. When you act, you do so from alignment, not agitation. You speak not to win, but to reveal. You move not to control, but to harmonize. And if needed, you walk away, not in anger, but in peace. This kind of presence is rare because it requires deep inner work. It asks you to feel everything without fleeing. It asks you to look at your wounds without identifying with them. It asks you to be still in the face of discomfort, to breathe when everything in you wants to react. But through this discipline, you begin to see that the real you has never been touched by these waves. The real you does not need to prove or protect. The real you is vast, clear, and timeless. To touch this truth even once is to never be the same again. You may still react at times. This is part of being human. But now you see it. You are not lost in it. And seeing is the beginning of freedom. Seeing allows you to choose. And choice is where identity is reclaimed. You begin to ask different questions. Not how do I stop reacting, but what part of me is reacting. Not how do I become someone else, but what parts of me have I mistaken for myself. These questions do not offer quick fixes. They invite depth. They draw you inward. They ask for your honesty, your patience, your humility, and they offer something greater than control. They offer wholeness. Wholeness does not mean you are always calm, always wise, always serene. It means you are no longer fragmented by your reactions. You are no longer at war with yourself. You are no longer chasing an image of perfection. You are simply present with your flaws, your brilliance, your uncertainty, your depth. In this presence, there is nothing to defend. In this presence, everything belongs. True identity is not a mask you wear. It is not a role you play. It is not how you perform under pressure. It is the silent witness that watches all these roles unfold. It is the awareness that does not change even as everything else does. It is the ground beneath your feet, the sky above your thoughts, the breath behind your words. It is not something you acquire. It is something you uncover by letting go of everything you thought you were. This uncovering is not a grand event. It happens in moments, in the way you pause before speaking, in the way you breathe through discomfort, in the way you smile without needing to be understood, in the way you walk away without resentment. These are the movements of one who is remembering, not remembering with the mind, but with the soul. You are not here to react to life. You are here to meet it, to meet each moment with presence, with awareness, with truth, to meet it not as a sponge, not as a mask, not as a habit, but as yourself, unshakable, unnameable, whole. When you live from that place, life becomes different. not easier but clearer, not quieter but more meaningful, because now you are no longer a wave reacting to the wind. You are the ocean, deep and still, reflecting the sky.